We're at Neiman Marcus. VH1 comes on in a week. Let it go, but hit the floor, okay?
Welcome to Miami.
Miami. Ow. People lost weight. Stephanie was an absolute angel. She really was. Everybody she's ever met. She's brought so many of these people into my life. She's connected so many people together. And she's just loved. She will never, ever, ever, ever be forgotten. She is so loved.
And he said, there's something else you don't know. He started shooting, then he shot her, and then he put the gun to his head. And that's what it was. Then I had to bury my best friend.
On the morning of December 8th, 2014, screams and gunshots shattered the quiet inside a Los Angeles apartment complex. Minutes later, the lifeless body of a beloved actress and dancer lay inside, her promising career violently cut short by the man who vowed to love her forever. She was 30-year-old Stephanie Mosley, a rising star known for her role on VH1's Hit the Floor and her electrifying performances alongside Beyoncé, Chris Brown, Usher, Britney Spears, and Janet Jackson. But behind her success was a marriage unraveling in jealousy and rage. Her husband, rapper Earl Hayes, believed he had uncovered a secret he could not live with, the secret of her blazing success. And instead of walking away, he chose devastation. What unfolded in that luxury apartment was even more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. This is the life and death of Stephanie Mosley. This story unfolds in the city of Los Angeles, California, USA, a vibrant and diverse metropolis home to longtime locals, newcomers from around the globe, industry professionals, and creative souls. Its landscape spans sunny beaches, towering skyscrapers, historic districts, and quiet residential neighborhoods, offering a mix of glamour and grounded familiarity. In 2014, crime across the city began to trend downward, with both violent crimes and property crimes showing modest declines compared to earlier years. Though some neighborhoods still face challenges, overall, the city was moving toward a safer reputation while holding on to its dynamic, ever-changing character. But this was not the case for Stephanie. Stephanie Elise Mosley was born on February 14, 1984 in Vancouver, British Columbia. To her family, she wasn't just their Valentine's Day baby, she was a child destined for the stage. From the time she could walk, Stephanie moved to the rhythm, mimicking music videos on TV and performing for her relatives. Her parents recognized her talent early and enrolled her in formal training. Stephanie studied at the Pacific Arts Ballet in Vancouver, the Kirkwood Academy of Performing Arts in Nanaimo, and Dan's Mode Productions in Burnaby, where instructors quickly saw something rare: discipline, humility, and an effortless presence that commanded attention. Rachel Poirier, one of her teachers, recalled that Stephanie wasn't just another student. She was someone everyone admired, the kind of dancer who elevated a whole class. Her peers looked up to her, and instructors knew she was destined to succeed. But talent alone wasn't enough. Stephanie worked tirelessly, often staying late after rehearsals to refine her craft. By 2002, at just 13 years old, she was ready to chase her dream on the biggest stage. She packed her bags and moved to Los Angeles, determined to make it in an industry where most never even get noticed. The move wasn't easy. LA was a city of dreamers, but also of fierce competition. Stephanie, however, was relentless. Slowly but surely, she began booking gigs. First came small performances, then major tours. She became a backup dancer for music icons including Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, Usher, Chris Brown, and Janet Jackson. She even contributed choreography for films like The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 1. Each step built her reputation as one of the most dependable and captivating performers in the business.
For the Devil Girls, like for this new dance TV series that was going to be filmed in LA, and I literally was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I wanted. It's what I worked for. This is it. Like, I was like, this is mine. Like, everything about it, I was like, it's mine. It's mine. It just is mine. And I went to the audition and I was like, nope, it's mine. And I got called for another audition. I was like, nope, it's mine. And I went to act. I got sides for an acting role. I was like, yes, it's mine.
She didn't just dance behind the stars, she shone in her own right. Eventually, Stephanie transitioned from music stages to television and film. She landed roles in projects like Idlewood, Sparkle, Mirror Mirror, and The Best Thanksgiving Ever. But her breakout moment came when she was cast as a series regular on VH1's Hit the Floor. While she played a member of the high-energy Devil Girls dance team, Stephanie showcased not only her dance, but also her acting abilities. It was the moment she had always dreamed of, her hard work finally paying off. Colleagues adored her not just for her professionalism, but for her warmth. She was known as someone who lit up every room she walked into, someone who left lasting impressions on both fans and friends. Her friends described her as humble despite her achievements, a woman who never forgot her Canadian roots, even as she climbed Hollywood's ladder. But Stephanie's personal life told a different story. In 2008, she married Earl Hayes, a rapper and songwriter who was part of Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s money team Entourage. Earl had collaborated with artists like Alicia Keys and the Pussycat Dolls, and he carried the swagger of someone who had brushed shoulders with fame. To outsiders, their relationship seemed glamorous, a Hollywood dancer and a rising rapper sharing a life of opportunity and connections. The couple even appeared together in Mayweather's documentary, 30 Days in May. But behind closed doors, things weren't as picture perfect as they seemed. Friends would later describe the relationship as tumultuous, weighed down by arguments, accusations of infidelity, and Earl's deep insecurities about Stephanie's success. As her career soared, his slowed, and not in balance only fueled the tension between them. At times, they tried to reconcile, but according to those close to them, trust had lessened. Earl reportedly believed Stephanie had been unfaithful in the past, even accusing her of having an affair with singer Trey Songz. Although the couple reunited after periods of separation, those suspicions never disappeared. And then came the terrible morning of December 8th, 2014. On around 7:30 a.m., residents of the Palazzo East apartments in the Park La Brea area were startled by the sound of a woman screaming. The cries were followed by rapid gunshots, and neighbors later said they heard at least 10 shots echoing through the halls. When officers rushed into the Park La Brea apartment complex that December morning, the scene was unlike anything they expected. Minutes earlier, neighbors had called 911 after hearing blood-curdling screams, followed by a volley of gunshots. As they approached the unit, they heard more gunshots ring out from inside. Realizing this was more than a routine call, they summoned the LAPD SWAT team. By the time the heavily armed squad breached the apartment, the outcome was already clear, and it was not pretty. Inside, the lifeless bodies of 30-year-old Stephanie Mosley and 34-year-old Earl Hayes lay in a tragic stillness. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. A handgun rested near Earl's body, providing detectives with their first clue about what had just unfolded.
This morning, a neighbor calling 911 after hearing gunshots and screaming from a woman in a next-door apartment. We're told the initial call said that as many as 10 shots were heard. Patrol officers arrived on scene. They entered the apartment. They found a back bedroom door closed, and when they tried to enter that back door, that's when they heard an additional 2 shots. The SWAT team was called in. They came in as a precaution, and when they finally entered the apartment, they found a man and woman dead from gunshot wounds.
But what investigators would uncover next painted a far darker picture than anyone could have imagined. As detectives secured the scene, the details began to emerge. Stephanie had been struck multiple times, her wounds leaving no chance of survival. Earl's injuries showed he had turned the weapon on himself after ending his wife. In just a matter of minutes, a glamorous Hollywood couple had become the center of one of Los Angeles' most chilling cases. However, the most shocking revelation wasn't discovered in the apartment itself. It came from one of Earl's closest friends. Floyd Mayweather, the world-famous boxer, admitted to detectives that he had been on a FaceTime call with Earl in the moments before the shooting. Floyd explained that Earl had been spiraling, consumed by many insane suspicions. He had strongly believed that Stephanie had been unfaithful. He ranted about past rumors, including her alleged involvement with singer Trey Songz, something that had haunted him for years. According to Floyd, he tried desperately to calm Earl down. He urged him to step away, to think about the consequences, but the call ended abruptly. Moments later, Floyd's worst fears were realized when news broke that Stephanie had been killed.
I was sitting with Melissa Brown. My best friend called me on FaceTime. We was talking a little bit. he put Stephanie on the phone. I talked to her, and I could tell that it looked like they both were doing drugs and drinking real heavy. I could tell they'd been up all night. They was talking. I hear the bath water running. He put it on FaceTime. He got back on the phone. I'm kind of getting choked up from this. So then I said, why you calling me so early in the morning? How you know I'm up? He said, because I love you. And he said, there's something else you don't know. And I was like, huh? And then he reached down and put out a gun. I said, man, what are you doing with that gun? He started shooting. Then he shot her. And then he put the gun to his head. And that's what it was. Then I had to bury my best friend.
But then, as investigators dug deeper, another disturbing detail came into focus. Neighbors told officers that before the first gunshots, they heard Stephanie screaming for help. Then came the deafening bursts of gunfire, followed by silence. Witnesses said the apartment went quiet, only for more shots to ring out shortly after. This aligned with what police themselves had experienced, arriving to hear additional gunfire before SWAT moved in. The LAPD treated the case cautiously, fearing the possibility of an active shooter or hostage situation. Once inside, however, they found that no one else had been involved. Investigators collected everything they could: the handgun, shell casings, and signs of a brief struggle. The autopsy later revealed that Stephanie had been struck multiple times in her upper body. Earl's wounds confirmed that he had turned the weapon on himself after killing his wife. Toxicology tests were ordered, though final results would take weeks. The evidence pointed to Earl acting alone in a fit of rage, but even with the crime scene secured, one question loomed large. Why did this marriage, once seen as glamorous and loving, collapse into such horrific violence? Detectives began piecing together the couple's history. Earl, who was once a promising rapper signed to Mayweather's label, had seen his career stall. Stephanie, on the other hand, was flourishing, appearing in VH1's Hit the Floor, securing roles in films, and dancing alongside icons like Beyoncé, Usher, and Chris Brown. To friends, she embodied success. But to Earl, her rising fame may have been a reminder of his own stalled ambitions. According to people close to the couple, jealousy and mistrust were constant shadows in their relationship. They had reportedly separated 2 years earlier after rumors of an affair, though they reconciled. Friends noticed, however, that Earl never seemed to let go of his suspicions. This imbalance between Stephanie's rising star and Earl's frustrations created a pressure cooker environment behind closed doors. And on December 8, 2014, it finally exploded. Meanwhile, the entertainment industry was reeling. News outlets across the world reported that a VH1 star had been killed in her own home. Colleagues from Hit the Floor described Stephanie as a vibrant force on set. Dancers and musicians who had toured with her shared memories of her kindness and talent. Rihanna posted a tribute, Ashley Tisler remembered their time together on Hellcats, and Alison Holliker from So You Think You Can Dance called her a true friend. But what detectives discovered next made the crime even more unsettling. Sources close to the couple revealed that Stephanie and Earl were considering separating again. Earl, however, was becoming increasingly erratic and paranoid. He had truly accused her repeatedly of infidelity, unable to forgive or move on from old rumors. For detectives, this pointed to a motive rooted in jealousy and control. What made the case even more tragic was that friends described Stephanie as someone who radiated joy. She was known for uplifting others, mentoring younger dancers, and carrying a positive spirit into every room.
The thought that her life had ended, not at the hands of a stranger, but by the man who vowed to protect her, was almost impossible to comprehend. Yet, the truth, however devastating, could no longer be denied. Investigators concluded that on that December morning, Earl's suspicions finally overwhelmed him. In a burst of rage, he shot Stephanie multiple times before turning the gun on himself. Floyd Mayweather's FaceTime call provided chilling insight into Earl's mindset, confirming that his actions were driven by jealousy and despair. With both Stephanie and Earl gone, the LAPD quickly closed the legal side of the case. There would be no arrest, no trial, no sentencing. But the emotional toll was far from over. Because for Stephanie's family, friends, and fans, the tragedy left behind a haunting question. How could someone so full of life and success fall victim to the very person she loved? And as the entertainment community prepared tributes, her loved ones faced the heartbreaking reality that they would never see her take the stage again. But justice in the truest sense would not come easily, because what followed in the aftermath exposed wounds that could never fully heal. In the days following Stephanie's tragic death, the entertainment world fell into mourning. Friends, family, and fans struggled to process the sudden loss of a woman whose life had been defined by her artistry, her kindness, and her vibrant spirit. VH1 released a heartfelt statement. They described her as not just a performer, but as a beloved member of their family. Cast members and crew echoed that sentiment, recalling how she lit up every rehearsal and filming day with her energy. Her absence, they said, was immeasurable. Meanwhile, fellow performers who had shared the stage with her began posting tributes across social media. Rihanna shared a picture of Stephanie and remembered the times they had danced together. Chris Brown, who had toured with her, called her a light in the industry. Ashley Tisdale, her co-star from Hellcats, reminded fans how much fun she had working alongside her. Dancer Allison Holker wrote about the friendship and support they had shared on set. Each message carried the same note of heartbreak. The world had lost a rare and special talent. But among the grief, there was also anger. For those who loved her most, the pain came with the knowledge that Stephanie's life was taken in such a senseless and violent way. Friends admitted they had seen the cracks in their relationship with Earl, but none imagined it would end in such horror. Eva Marcial, a longtime friend, described Stephanie as an angel whose life had not always been easy in recent years, but never seemed destined for this. To her and to many, the tragedy underscored how quickly jealousy and violence could erupt behind closed doors.
Stephanie was an absolute angel. She really was. Everybody she's ever met. She's brought so many of these people into my life. She's connected so many people together. And she's just loved. She will never, ever, ever, ever be forgotten. She is so loved.
And everyone has their problems, but if you're asking if anyone knew that, something would come to this, hell no. It was the last of what anybody would have thought. I thought it was a lie when I got the phone call.
But even as her story became part of a wider conversation, her family was left to plan the heartbreaking task of saying goodbye. Stephanie's funeral took place in Canada, where she had been born and raised. Her loved ones gathered to honor her life, remembering not just the celebrity she became, but the humble, determined young woman who had started her journey in dance studios across Vancouver. Former teachers spoke of her dedication and her humility, recalling how she would stay long after class ended to perfect her moves. Childhood friends shared memories of her laughter, her warmth, and her determination to follow her dreams. Her family described her as a daughter who never forgot her roots, returning home as often as she could despite her demanding career. They remembered the way she cherished her parents and siblings, and how much pride she carried in representing her hometown on the international stage. At the funeral, the grief was overwhelming, but so too was the pride. Stephanie had accomplished what so many only dream of. She had made it to Hollywood, and she had left her mark. The tragedy was that her story ended far too soon. But the truth, however painful, was that her legacy would not fade. In the months after her death, tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry. Fellow performers dedicated performances in her honor. Her colleagues on Hit the Floor carried their memory with them into the show's next season. Fans of the series often wrote that they continued watching because it felt like a way of keeping her spirit alive. Eventually, her name became not just a memory, but a call for awareness. She was remembered as a woman who had given everything to her art, but whose life became a cautionary tale about love turned destructive. But the most heartbreaking part of this story was not just the violent end, it was the questions it left behind. These questions haunted not only her family, but also the fans who had watched her shine. They served as reminders that behind even the brightest smiles, there can be hidden pain. As time passed, Stephanie's story became a permanent part of the conversation around domestic violence in Hollywood. She joined a list of women whose lives were cut short by the very men who had once promised to love them. Today, Stephanie is remembered not just for the way her life ended, but for everything she achieved and the inspiration she gave to those who watched her rise. She remains a role model for young dancers, a reminder of where passion and determination can take you, and she remains a warning of how dangerous unchecked jealousy can become. To her fans, her colleagues, and her family, the pain of her loss has never truly gone away, but they carry her memory forward, determined that her story will never be forgotten.
If you or someone you know is struggling in a relationship marked by control, jealousy, or fear, reach out for help. There are organizations and hotlines dedicated to supporting those in danger. No one should have to face what Stephanie did, and silence is never the answer.